Hey students, so today we are going to discuss the topic of matter and mass. So, what is matter? Matter is simply anything you can touch, see, or feel. And if it makes up space and weight something, even a tiny amount, it is matter. Okay? So, matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. And we have three types of matter: solid, gas, and liquid. So, this is your activity that you have to name three things around you that are matter. It can be anything like a chair, table, or whatever. Okay? So, so this is your pre-assessment, and you have to take a moment to think about these two questions. And the questions are: what is density? And what happens to matter when it's heated or cooled? Okay? So, density basically tells us how tightly packed together the stuff, like particles inside an object is. Like we have high density and low density. High density simple means that if particles are packed very close together, the object is heavy for its size, like a stone. And low density, if particles are spread far apart, like the object is light for its size, like a sponge or a pillow. Okay? So, what happens to matter when it's heat or cooled? Like when you heat the matter, the particles gain energy and start moving around faster and faster. And as they move, they push away from each other and spread out. This causes the matter to expand. Okay, like simple example, ice melts into water when heated. Okay, so the next one is matter and mass. As I have told you that in simple words, metal is an actual object or stuff itself. Like if you can see it, touch it, or if it takes up any room, it is matter. Like a rock, chair, water, etc. So matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. It includes solid, liquids, and gases like a rock, water, or air. And mass. Mass is the amount of matter in an object. It tells us how much material makes up an object. The more mass something has, the heavier it is. Okay? Like in simple words, it is how much stuff is inside that object. It tells us how heavy or packed the object is. More mass means that it feels heavier. And we mostly measure it in kilograms or grams. Okay? So here we have example. A chair is matter because it takes up space and has mass. Okay? The chair is matter because it is a physical object sitting in the room taking up space. Okay? And mass. If you put the chair on a scale, it might weigh 5 kg. That weight is a representation of its mass. The chair's mass tells you how much matter is packed into it. So basically, if you lift it up or put it on a scale, the number 5 kg basically tells you exactly how much wood or plastic is packed into making that chair. Okay, students? So, what do you think has more mass? A ball, 0.5 kg, the book, which is 1 kg, and the balloon, which is 0.01 kg, which is so less. Yes, book has more mass. Okay, so the next one is how to calculate density. So as I have told you in the first slide that density is just a measure of how tightly packed the stuff inside an object is. Okay, so density is a measure of how much mass is packed into a certain amount of space. In other words, it tells us how tightly matter is packed in an object. So high density. High density means heavy for its size, like lots of matter jammed into a small space. For example, a heavy metal block. Okay? Objects that are heavy for their size have a high density. For example, a metal block is dense because a lot of matter is packed into small space. Whereas low density Objects that are light for their size have a low density. For example, a balloon filled with air has low density because the matter inside is spread out. Okay? So, low density is basically light for its size, like simply you can say an air-filled balloon. Okay? And we have formula which is density is equals to mass divided by volume. To find the density of an object, you take its mass and divide it by its volume. Okay? And mass is usually measured in grams and volume is usually measured in cubic centimeters. Okay? So, So this is an example and you have to read it and understand it to calculate the density for each and share your answers. Okay. So what is the conservation of matter? So it is basically a scientific rule that says matter can never disappear and it cannot be made out of things. Like matter cannot be created, matter cannot be destroyed, and it can only change its form, like melting, freezing, or burning. Okay? So, the conservation of matter states that matter cannot be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction or physical change. It can only change its form. So, this means that even when substances undergo changes, the total amount of matter remains the same, even if it looks different. Okay? So, in short, the total amount of stuff in the universe always stays exactly the same, even if it looks completely different after a change. Okay? So, when an ice cube melts, it changes from a solid to a liquid. If you then boil the water, it turns into a steam, which is a gas. Even though the ice cube is no longer solid, the water is still there, just in different form. The amount of water has not changed, it has just gone from solid to liquid and to gas. Okay? So this is a graph to understand conservation. So here's a graph illustrating the conservation of matter. The blue dashed line, which is this, shows the mass before the reaction, which remains constant, while the red line represents the mass after the reaction, which decreases, for example, as paper burns. Okay? This graph demonstrates that even though the visible form changes, the mass before and after the reaction remains related to the conservation of matter. Okay? So, this is your assessment, and as I have already explained all the things, so you have to just revise all the things and do this assessment and write your answers in the comment section.